And then talking about injuries, Curtis Rourke. This is why it was so impressive Indiana won the game the way that they did, 56-7, because Curtis Rourke only played in half the game, which is insane. He only played in half of the game because, unfortunately, there has been updating reports that halfway through the game, he hurt his thumb. And he hurt his thumb because when he was throwing a pass, his finger hit the helmet of a Nebraska player. How many times does that happen in football history where a quarterback hurts his hand or thumb or finger or whatever on a helmet? It happens all the time. It even happens in the NFL all the time. Such an unfortunate thing to happen for Indiana, where this season, everything's been going right after decades of awful football for IU. They're finally having a great season, and then you have an injury like this. That is tough. Now, hopefully, it's not severe. A lot of people are saying that it is not. And actually, the early reports were worse, saying that he might be out for several games, and he probably will return by the end of the season, but it looked like he was going to be out for several games. Well, now Pete Thamel's reporting that Indiana quarterback Curtis Rourke's injured thumb is improving enough where he could be back for Michigan State on November 2nd, which is the game after next week's game against Washington. He's still doubtful for Saturday against Washington, but there's more optimism about the immediate future. That's great. And it's probably more than likely that he will not play against Washington because Curt Cignetti's already been saying that Tayven's ready to go. Tayven Jackson, Indiana's backup quarterback, should be ready to go. And that he should be, able to lead Indiana to success against Washington because he is a talented quarterback. Former 4-star recruit that committed to Tennessee. And then he had to transfer because he was getting recruited over, goes to Indiana. He's the brother of Trace Jackson Davis, so he had that tie there. And he is a good player. He's just more mistake-prone than Curtis Rourke. He's not as consistent, and that's why Cignetti did not have him as a starting quarterback. He had Curtis Rourke as the starting quarterback, but he still has faith in Tayven Jackson that he will be able to have success for Indiana against Washington because he did well at the end of the Nebraska game. He played basically the whole second half for Indiana in that Nebraska game, and he had a couple touchdowns. So he was contributing to the success. Now, a lot of people were saying, yeah, Indiana was up big, right, against Nebraska in that second half, so there was no pressure. And I agree. I would rather Curtis Rourke be available for this game. It would, ease, that little bit of a feeling there of nervousness that, no, Curtis Rourke, things might not be as good for Indiana in this game. The offense might not be as sharp, having a different signal call in there, a guy that has less experience, because the offense has been used to Curtis Rourke. It's different having another guy in there, especially a guy with less experience. I think Tayven Jackson has enough experience to, be successful overall, in this game, but definitely not against a team like Ohio State in that game. If you're still fighting for that college football playoff bid, you want to make the college football playoff, you want to compete. Against a team like Ohio State, you need Curtis Rourke back. Definitely do not want to go out there with Tayven Jackson. But against a team like Washington, maybe that will be okay. But I do think that overall that this report is very, very good for Indiana football, that his injured thumb does not look as bad as it looked a couple days ago before the surgery that he just had, when the reports were that he might be out for games. Now it's only being reported he might only be out for the Washington game, and he might be back for Michigan State. That's a whole lot better. It stinks for Curtis Rourke because he was in the Heisman running, and maybe if he can get back in there really quickly, maybe he could still save his stock for that. But it's an unfortunate injury. It's thankful that it's not too bad. Could have been a whole lot worse. I mean, if he had broke his hand or something like that, then he would have been out the rest of the season. So that was very, very fortunate for Indiana that it's just his thumb. He's going to have some discomfort with that. It's a painful injury, but definitely, hopefully, Curtis Rourke will not be out too long, that he'll get healthy fast, and that he can return quickly. But it is a good sign that Cignetti does have confidence in Tayven Jackson. And it is good for Indiana that Tayven Jackson didn't leave, because if not, you'd have true freshman Tyler Cherry right now playing in this game, which, he's a 4-star freshman, very talented guy, but as we've seen in college football, it's very tough for freshmen to come in and have a lot of success. So I do think it is good for Indiana that they have a guy in Tayven Jackson who's also, very talented, but has more experience as well, has had more in-game scenarios. So I think that definitely helps IU. And it's a great report to see Curtis Rourke not be out for too long. Hopefully he's going to have to pass the torch to Tayven Jackson for brief, but hopefully he can come right back in and start for Indiana in those really big games down the stretch of the season against Michigan and Ohio State.